As graduation approaches, medical residents and fellows are focused on contracts, location, and income, and disability insurance probably feels secondary. But graduation quietly changes how disability insurance works and faster than people expect. Today, I'm joined by Steve Crawford, and I'm really excited about this conversation because Steve is probably the most enthusiastic and knowledgeable person about guaranteed standard issue GSI disability insurance programs. So there's no one more suitable to have this discussion with. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what actually changes around match day and graduation. And one detail that may surprise people, if you apply elsewhere, you may be voided of the opportunity of getting a GSI disability insurance policy. So welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So for people that maybe didn't listen to the other podcast, let's just start out. What is GSI, Guaranteed Standard Issue?
Sure. Well, like you said, GSI stands for Guaranteed Standard Issue. It's a way for residents and fellows to buy a personal disability insurance policy with no medical questions asked, regardless of your medical history. I'm not going to pretend to understand anything about medicine and compare that to a doctor's knowledge, but what I do know is that most physicians haven't taken the time to look and see everything that's ever been written about them in their medical records. And I also know that physicians have absolutely no idea how a disability insurance underwriter in an insurance company is going to interpret what's written in their medical records and how that applies to a disability policy. With a GSI policy, you don't have to worry about any of that. So any physician who has even the most remote medical history, like ADHD medication, anxiety medication, pregnancy complications, a recent needle stick, um, any of that stuff, to more serious complications like cancer or diabetes, are fully covered. And it's really their one and only chance to do so. It's important that they take care of this while they have the opportunity, because that opportunity may
Yeah.
not exist.
So, I mean, because we've both been doing this for a really long time, and we know that most residents and fellows are aware, get disability insurance while you're in training. You get discounts, and those discounts last a long time. But what's the difference between, let's say somebody's like, you know what, I'm healthy, I can just go out and get this. What percentage of the time do even healthy people end up with some kind of exclusion or limitation?
So according to Milliman in 2021, it's right about 50% of people who think they're healthy who end up with some sort of modification on a disability insurance policy. And that could be something as simple as like a knee exclusion or an elbow exclusion or exclusion on your hands, which God forbid if you're a surgeon,
Hmm.
you're going to want to make sure you don't have coverage for your hands, that just because you had a couple broken fingers. Can you imagine not having coverage for disability insurance for your hands? Like I said, when over half people need this, there's probably a reason for it.
Hmm.
It's not something you should mess around with. This is income protection that we're talking about, and a lot of physicians make a very high income. So later on down the line, if you're making a half a million, $750,000 a year or more, and you can't have disability insurance because you didn't take the time in residency to take advantage of that GSI opportunity where you knew you could get it, the risk reward scenario is just not there. Like when you
So
have
let's
this
talk about,
opportunity,
yeah,
take advantage of it.
so I mentioned kind of in the intro about if you go and apply elsewhere first, or what's the risk of doing that?
Sure. So if you apply for disability insurance with another company first, you're no longer eligible for the GSI with Guardian. I don't know 100% what the rules are with other carriers, but I think they have kind of the same rule if I'm not mistaken. Um, and that's dangerous because we know residents and fellows don't, it's not on you to understand what GSI rules are. Unfortunately, the vast majority of insurance agents also don't know the rules about guaranteed standard issue disability insurance. This is a very niche market that obviously you and I both know the rules for, but that's why I'm so grateful to be a part of this podcast to be able to help get that word out and spread because, we go to conferences like ACGME, which is coming up here in just a couple of weeks, because we're there to hope that program directors and education coordinators will take care of their trainees and just let them know it's available. Hospitals do a great job covering their incomes while they're in training. They offer them superior group LTD contracts. I've seen some group LTD contracts at some teaching hospitals that rival what you see in some individual
Mhm.
policies, but everybody
But
loses
those
that
go away
coverage.
the day you
Yeah,
graduate. They're gone.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
day you graduate, that's gone. And most people buy a personal policy then. And it's in your interest as a resident to make sure you buy your personal policy before you graduate so you get not only the guaranteed issue offer and coverage for anything that could ever have happened to you in your past, but also permanent discounts of up to 30% that stay with you for the life of the policy during your entire working years until you retire. So you have every incentive in the world to do this before you graduate. I would argue you should do it in your first year and not wait until graduation. But it's the most important, one of the most important financial decisions you'll ever make.
So let's talk a little bit about timing because there are some strategic ways to look at this when it comes to both match day and graduation. So let's maybe if you can talk a little bit about how and why timing really matters when it comes to GSI.
Sure. So one of the rules for GSI is that you must purchase it while you're still in training. And I think they give you a 90-day window after graduation, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
And
and the
and
rea
and at a GSI sponsored hospital
and
to
yes,
get.
correct, at a hospital where Guardian actually has a guaranteed standard issue offer in place. Uh, if you wait too long, that's it. You
It
can't wait.
expires. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't come in 4 months after graduation and say, "Oh, I was meaning to do this. I got your email. Is it still available?" There are no exceptions because the reality is a high percentage of the people who waited too long and now came to us saying, "Oh, now I need it." Odds are they're doing it for a reason where there's a medical problem. So the insurance company is really hard and fast about sticking to those rules. You're only eligible while in training for 90 days thereafter. And 90 days doesn't mean, if you graduate on June 30th, it doesn't mean the 30th of 3 months later. It literally means 90 days. So it could be June, July, August, September 27th or something like that
Hmm.
is when it expires, not necessarily the 30th. In match day, same kind of same thing. You can't buy a personal policy until you have an income to protect. So there's obviously a bit of time between match day and the day you start your training, but you could apply for it after you've matched into a hospital where you know there's a Guardian GSI offer,
Hmm.
and then date the application for the first day that you actually start working there. So we can't issue the
Yeah.
policy until you're actually employed by the new
So if
hospital.
you're matching, so if you're coming out of medical school or maybe you're doing residency and you're matching for fellowship and you're
Mhm.
at a place where there's no GSI available, as soon as you match, it's important to look and say, will my place I'm matching have a GSI? And if so, you could even preemptively apply and just request the effective date to be the date you start your training, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, as opposed to maybe you're at a hospital right now that doesn't have GSI and now you're matching with one that does. Or it could be the other way around. You're at a hospital now that does have a GSI, you're going to be matching at a place that doesn't. You really need to make sure that you take advantage of that while you
Yeah,
can.
take care of it while you have the opportunity because once the opportunity is gone, it's gone.
So, what do you recommend for people who are at a hospital and the GSI is not available?
Well, the only choice that they have is to apply fully underwritten currently. You can also lobby the hospital to try to help implement a guaranteed issue offer for the following year, and hopefully you'll still be training there if it's
Hmm.
not too late. But there's really only two ways to get a GSI implemented at a hospital. One is to have the hospital basically endorse the offer and work with a company like Guardian or Emeritus or Standard and say, hey, we'd like to put in a guaranteed issue offer for our residents and fellows. And that typically they do so by working with an agent like yourself who could, successfully implement that for the hospital. Or two, agents who make a lot of sales at that hospital can go to a company like Guardian. Like, let's say you wrote 15 people at XYZ University this year. You could go to Guardian and say, hey, uh, I just wrote 15 lives in internal medicine and ER at this specific hospital, and 40% participation would be 20 lives. Can I have a GSI offer for their next year? And if the insurance company believes that yes, you could deliver over 40% participation every year, typically they'll make an offer for the following year. But it also
So,
that's why it's
yeah.
important that residents don't make the mistake of waiting until graduation because every year insurance companies withdraw the GSI applications because that producer did not surpass 40% participation. And if the participation is low, they just stop it immediately. They're not going to wait until January 1st and say, hey, we're gonna withdraw this in January. Like when a GSI
So there
offer is
might be
gone, it's
somebody listening.
instant.
So there could be someone listening and saying, okay, well, you know what? This is great. We're in February. I'm just going to wait until June, or when I'm going to be graduating. I just don't have time between now and then. What's the risk of even waiting between then and
Yeah,
graduation day?
so I'm probably saying too much, but there were hospitals at Guardian in 2025 that there was an argument about should the GSI offer be pulled or not. And the producers involved in those programs said, hey, here's a couple of reasons why we don't want you to pull the programs. And so I think they're basically on probation.
Mhm.
So if they
So
don't,
they did, if not enough people participate, meaning not enough
yeah,
residents bought a policy and they're going to pull the program. And it
and
may
they're
not
not going to wait
be,
until January to do
they're not
it.
going to wait until January. So the risk is
Yep.
even if it's here today, it may not be tomorrow. So
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
makes sense to
It
get
would
it.
be heart-wrenching for somebody who needs GSI to just say, hey, I'll wait until a month before graduation to do it. And then tomorrow wake up and the GSI offer doesn't exist anymore. I mean,
So,
so many companies, one company who's one of our major competitors has dropped like 20 to 25 programs in the last 2 years. Another one's down to under 15 programs.
yeah.
We keep growing, but while we've grown to almost 200 programs, lots of hospitals have been dropped during that process. That list of articles on list of hospitals on disabilityquotes.com/GSI is changing all the time. I know because I'm the one changing it. And
Hmm.
I'm dropping and adding hospitals all the time.
So it sounds like it's really fluid. So
Yes.
and so kind of going back to that, somebody says, "Okay, this is really great. I have no idea if I have GSI or not. I get hounded by all these insurance people. I don't pay attention to it. How can they find out, number one, if GSI is available, and number two, maybe they're already working with somebody. Can they get it through the person they're working with?"
So in case I lose track of that question, I just wanted to make a point based on your comment there. There's a reason that so many insurance agents are sending so many emails to residents and fellows. We understand the need for this. We understand this is your best chance ever to buy top tier elite level disability insurance coverage if you do so while in training. Not only do you have the guaranteed issue offer to cover any medical issues, but you have the permanent discounts. We know that it would be a real big mistake for you to wait until after graduation and you lose access to both of those things. Hence why so many residents and fellows are barraged with hundreds, if not more, emails on a regular basis. Um, don't ignore
Yeah. So the question was,
that.
okay, so I got all these emails. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know I need to do
Yeah.
this. How do I find out if I have GSI? And number
Mhm.
two was, okay, can all agents provide it?
Yep. So I would, there's so many ways to answer that question. Number one, don't necessarily rely on the fact that your hospital GME actually knows if there's a GSI. There are lots of guaranteed issue offers at many hospitals where the hospital doesn't even know it exists. This is
Mhm.
done independent and third party. Some hospitals endorse it, love it. As an example, Mass General Brigham has endorsed our GSI offer. They love the fact that we're there. It's a great benefit to all their trainees. They don't have to administer it. We do everything for them. And there's lots of hospitals like that. There's also hospitals that don't necessarily know we exist or just don't want to be involved at all. Either is okay. We're providing the same benefit for everybody. The safest way that you can find out, honestly, is to talk to an insurance agent who really knows this stuff. Obviously, you know this stuff. There's
Mhm.
lots of producers who are specialists in this area who know about every GSI from every hospital. There are some online resources, like we mentioned, disabilityquotes.com/GSI. That's a very large list of Guardians hospitals, but even that is not a comprehensive list. I could name almost 40 hospitals that aren't on that list because the producers didn't want their hospitals named publicly.
Mhm.
Standard has a list on their web browser that you can Google. Emeritus has a list for insurance agents. I don't think it's made available to the public. So the real answer, unfortunately, is you have to find a producer who knows this stuff and knows and has the resources to find out if there's a GSI offer from Standard, Mass Mutual, Guardian, or Emeritus.
So it sounds like what you're saying is only a select group of producers can have access to this. So even if
Yeah.
you're working with somebody and you think they're really nice, maybe you got your auto insurance from them, chances are they may not be able to get this for you. It's very specialized and you really need to work with somebody who's been vetted. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
I think I mentioned in the previous podcast we did, GSI is earned. You and I have known each other for 1 or 2 years at this point in time. Uh, Most of the people that I know who are really in the GSI business are people who do a very large volume, consistently quality business over a long period of time. Insurance companies trust them to do the right thing because in the end, like we have to look out for the insurance companies too. Otherwise, the GSI offers for all the hospitals would expire tomorrow.
Hmm.
If we weren't doing the right thing all the time, we'd be out of the GSI business like other major companies who went into the GSI business hard and got back out of it because it didn't work out for them. This isn't the biggest guarantee or the least risky business that insurance companies have ever been in. Guardian, fortunately, I think, has done this the right way, and they've done it for 15 years, and they operated very slow and learned a lot over that time frame before they've put their foot on the gas pedal in the last 4 or 5 years specifically to now we have almost 200 hospitals nationwide at most of the premier teaching hospitals in the country. But we've done it the right way to make sure that we weren't the next company to get into the GSI business and then get right back out of it. But
Hmm.
it does require working with a lot of the producers that you and I have known for 20, 30 years now,
Hmm.
who do things the right way all the time. You can't rely on the fact that your buddy works for some other major mutual company and just assume he knows the rules. Hell, 5 years ago, I barely knew the rules.
Hmm.
So how can we expect everybody else to know the rules right
So
now?
maybe if somebody has somebody that they're working with, maybe it's good to also still get a second opinion and make sure, if they don't have access to this, that's fine. You can handle my other stuff, but this is really, really specialized and it needs to be handled properly. So you want
Yeah,
to work with somebody who's
it,
knows
it's
what they're
it
doing.
scares me the most in the online world. Uh, there are some good places to buy disability insurance online. You're obviously one of them. 25 years ago, I'd like to think I was doing the right thing when I was selling disability insurance
You
online.
absolutely were, yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
think you and I were the only ones back then.
I wouldn't go that far. But
We
there's
were the we
there's
were the early adopters,
we
yes.
were definitely the early adopters. But
Yes.
there are some places online where I know people are getting a lot of bad advice.
Hmm.
I don't want to name anybody out and really, start a war, but like there are some notable places where physicians go to for advice online, specifically about disability insurance, where some of the people involved are making recommendations to go to carriers that don't have a GSI when they all know that there's a GSI available at their hospital. To
Yeah,
me, that's morally reprehensible.
I
Uh,
agree. So let's say somebody's listening to this, they say, okay, that's great. I'm pretty sure I have a G, or my friend got a GSI, they bought it through Set for Life or whatever. Let's talk a little bit about what it is. How much can they get, coming up to graduation, or, how much can they get? Is it own occupation? What are the riders and are there
sure.
limits? Like maybe just explain what the actual policy is and maybe even kind of what it costs.
Sure. So right off the bat, the policy is the same, whether it's GSI or fully underwritten. Guardian is what I believe to be one of the best disability insurance policies a physician can get. Quite frankly, I was on the committee that helped design this policy. It was designed for physicians.
Hmm.
I mean, specifically, we were targeting physicians when we designed this policy. I would argue to the ends of the earth that nobody can say we have a better policy for a physician than Guardian has. That's something I would.
And that's true because, again, maybe you could talk a little bit about the language, not
Yep.
the own occupation, but taking it a step further, the extra layer of surgical specialty language in there. So maybe talk a little bit about that because there's a lot of surgeons out there saying, I absolutely need to get the very best I can get.
Sure. So most companies these days have own occupation, or at least a version of it. Not all of them, but most of them. Versus in the late 90s, Guardian was really one of the only carriers still in the own occupation disability insurance world for physicians. Uh, what sets Guardian apart right now are multiple things. As you mentioned, our definition of disability with surgical specialty language, where if a certain percentage of your income comes from one aspect of your practice or your medical specialty, will still be totally disabled. I mean,
Hmm.
you can't get that level of coverage from any other carrier.
And I
It's
use the
not.
example of like an OBGYN, they're doing clinical work and then they're doing procedural work. If something happened, I had an OBGYN who was washing dishes, slipped and ripped her finger off on the dishwasher.
Oh,
That's a perfect example. She, so if she had one of the other companies, they would say, okay, well, you have a 50% loss of income. We're going to pay you 50% of your benefit. And this, with a guardian policy, because she can't do the surgical procedure, she'd get 100% of her benefits, correct?
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a laundry list of things that I don't want to bore people going through the details of the policy, but the most important thing for people to understand is the difference between GSI and fully underwritten. There's only three. It's the benefit period option of to age 70, not available on GSI, only available on fully
So
underwritten.
you could get age 65 or 67.
Yes,
Correct.
and that's the most commonly sold policies.
Yeah, I rarely do age 70. Yeah.
Most people buy 65 or 67.
Hmm.
There is no serious illness supplement available on GSI, and
Hmm.
that's really only for stroke, cancer, and heart disease kind of a
And
thing.
that's also rarely used writer. Yeah.
Correct. And it's only 50% increase for 1 year. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Um, and then the mental and nervous, which is I think, arguably the biggest difference between GSI and fully underwritten. With GSI, there's a 2 year max on mental and nervous coverage.
For all
With
specialties.
for
Yeah.
all specialties. With fully underwritten, some medical specialties, not all, but some medical specialties can get unlimited mental and nervous protection.
And
And that
then
is
also really the only other distinction would be the amount, the limit in the future, how much they can increase.
correct.
Yeah.
So with GSI, you're capped at 15,000 coverage.
Hmm.
You have to fully qualify for any amount over and above that. You'd have to go through underwriting to get above
So
15,000.
once you have your GSI, you can still acquire more coverage
Sure,
by going through
absolutely.
underwriting for that additional, but get the GSI first so you don't have to risk losing
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
And from my opinion, people always talk to me about, who's the best company for my medical specialty. That's a question that I'm sure you get all the time. My answer to that question, if you're in training, is what company has the GSI? I'm not saying Guardian, I'm not saying Emeritus, I'm not saying Standard. I believe if you are at a hospital like Houston Methodist that has a Standard GSI, you should 100% buy Standard at Houston Methodist.
Mhm.
If you're at a hospital that only has an Emeritus GSI, you should 100% buy the Emeritus GSI. If you're at a hospital that only has the Guardian GSI, you should 100% buy the Guardian GSI. There's never a good reason, and nobody has ever been able to give me a reason why buying another company when there's a GSI available is ever a good idea. You'd just be straight gambling with your
Hmm.
entire financial future for no good reason
Hmm.
because one policy costs $50 less a year or something like that. That would just be a horrible financial decision in every scenario. So
So
the
if
best
somebody
contract
wants,
is
yeah,
always the GSI, from my opinion.
I agree. So if somebody even if they're graduating or they're early in their training and they just want to get a minimum size policy to just take advantage of all of these, they don't have to
Mhm.
buy the largest amount available. They can even get as low as 2,500 a month. What does
Sure.
something like that cost? You're 30 years old, you're getting 2,500 a month benefit, but you're still going to be pre-approved up to 15. What does
Yep.
something like that cost?
So it depends if you're male or female. Females pay a little bit more for disability insurance. They pay a little bit less for life insurance.
Hmm.
But typically for 2,500 a month with the BPR rider, you're looking at like 30, 40, $50 a month.
Yeah.
It's
So it
not very
depends on
expensive.
specialty, age, gender. That's
Yep,
pretty much it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you
So
can
it's
lock in your
really, it's
income protection
not that,
forever.
yeah. Yeah. And so even if you're graduating, you can still get a minimum size policy and then wait until your attending salary comes through. So, all right. So last bit of advice for somebody, again, who's coming up on graduation. Um, what would you advise them? They don't have a lot of time. They just need to know what they need to do. What would
Sure.
you tell them?
It's so much easier than you think it is, especially if you happen to be at a hospital with a Guardian GSI. You can just straight Google, my hospital and GSI disability insurance. And if you find a page, like you can design your quote online in real time. You can enroll by filling out a 3-page pre-application questionnaire. I mean, it really doesn't take more than a couple hours of your time to run a quote, design it, work with your agent, and apply. Uh, these policies are turned around sometimes same day, where
Hmm.
you can talk to the agent, fill out the questionnaire. This is easy. Don't
And
put
is
it
it
off because you
enforced? And
get
it's enforced as soon as it's issued and they pay that first premium, they
correct.
walk out the door. It's enforced.
Yeah. Typically it takes about 2 days to do the whole thing, but I've seen it happen same day all the time. Maybe during graduation season, it might take a week because so many people do it all at
The
once.
volume. Yeah,
But if you were thinking, hey, I don't want to deal with this because I've been seeing hundreds or thousands of emails from insurance agents across the country, and I just want to keep putting it off, my recommendation is it's so much easier than you think it is. And once you buy it, you just block all the other emails. You don't need them anymore. So
exactly.
just take care of it. You know you're going to need to do it. So don't put it off. It's a lot easier process than you think it is. We try to make this a very painless, quick enrollment.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you for coming here today. This was really enlightening. I hope people learn something and hopefully it'll motivate them to take care of this while they're still in training and not miss that window of opportunity. So I thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming.
having me. I appreciate it.
Today's conversation was with Steve Crawford, who partners with brokers around the country on GSI programs and brings decades of experience working with residents and fellows as they make early income protection decisions.